Ready when you are, CB. Do I start in Canada or Mexico?
We didn't do Animal Kingdom.
You really AK hate us? This is Theme Park Thursday with Dillo's Diz. She is Jen.
Hello.
And I am Frank, and we have a guest this week, Jen. How excited are you?
Very excited.
More
excited that I'm letting on. I gotta play it cool.
You keeping it cool?
Yeah, I don't want to fangirl, so I gotta be cool.
Well, we're big on the nostalgia.
Yeah.
And there's some people that we see over and over in different TV shows and it feels like over time that we know them.
Yeah.
So this guest today, we feel like we know him, and we were talking to him before we started, and we're like, oh, we totally know him. It's so cool. But April 30th on Disney Plus, Adventures in Wonderland is finally streaming, and that was big news in the month of March. And we have today a member of the cast, but we're going to talk about everything, all of it. We're going to talk about it all. Please welcome to Theme Park Thursday, Wesley Mann. Wesley, hello.
Hello.
Perfect. Hello.
We are so excited to have you here. How has the past 12 months been going for you? Maybe a little better now. You're hearing about Adventures in Wonderland streaming. Come on, it's gonna be good.
Oh, well, the last 12 months has been like living in an airport waiting for the next flight to arrive. And consequently, I have a friend, we talk about, how we ate, and it was like, oh, airport rules. So you that's just what you eat. And so, yeah, I've accumulated the COVID-15, of which I am trying to walk off 1/10 of a pound at a time and drinking as much water as possible without floating away, and putting one foot in front of the other every day. Oh gosh, the thing I'm into that I sort of discovered is I like period crime dramas.
Oh.
And I like, yes, I like the murder documentaries. I'm one of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like watching the 4 or 5 hour documentaries and trying to put the puzzle pieces together because they actually hold my interest. Because how many times can you watch Sleepless in Seattle because it's on cable?
Every time is the answer.
Are there layers to that on Netflix? Like, you see the ones pop up that like everyone's watching, and then is there like the second level and the third level where you really like there's really the obscure stuff out there? I'm not really sure beyond the most popular ones.
Yeah. I the last one that I watched with any real interest, although I found that I was falling asleep during it, so I would have to go back the next day and watch the previous hour. It was about this.
It's good.
Individual named Henry Lee Lucas, who is reported to be, someone who killed over 300 people.
Oh my gosh!
And it's a strange tale, but it filled up the time, which is what I seem to be doing, and what the last year has really been about. And I'm still waiting, to get vaccinated because I'm just a little bit too young. In Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
But so, yeah, I watched a lot of television.
Was Tiger King the gateway stream into all of these did it start there and just?
Yeah, I've always liked documentaries as a style of film. But that one, I am afraid to tell you, I binged in 2 days.
Yeah. I think I did it in 1.
Yeah.
And I wasn't proud. I was like, this is silly. I'm not going to watch this whole thing. I'll watch 1 episode and see what all the fuss is about. And then it was over. And I didn't move.
Like any good story, it's filled with fantastic characters.
Yes.
And by fantastic, I mean practically unreal.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yes.
Because they're not necessarily wonderful.
No.
Yeah.
Now, when you watch all of these documentaries, do you ever get to the point where like you have solved the case? Now you just got to wait it out to see if you're right or not. I mean, do you get to that point? Yeah.
Yeah. There was one on the Cecil Hotel, which is sort of a notorious, hotel here in Los Angeles, and that was one that I had figured out from watching the video footage that they kept showing over and over again, and all the red herrings. And well, we found that the time codes didn't match, and so the film has been slowed down to make it look even creepier. And was the hatch open or was the hatch closed? It was reported open, and yada yada yada. Can you tell?
No, you're all in. I love it. This is totally the direction I expected at the beginning. And keep us on our toes for the next hour here. I'm all in.
Yeah.
But when you see like the streaming world, and because you have played so many different characters in your life. I mean, you're the quintessential character actor, especially all your roles on different sitcoms over the years. And you see these characters come through, whether it's Tiger King or anything else. And does it really do you file it away and go, I'm just going to keep this in case I need it for this character someday?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm a makeup guy because I've been playing old men since I was 14 years old. And this cat, Harry Lee Lucas, he had one dead eye, and my eyes aren't straight anyway. He had one dead eye, and he had 3 teeth in his head, and he did not age well, shall we say? Mm-hmm. And so that was oh yeah, that's one for what we call the makeup morgue.
Yeah.
Choose one from column A, 2 from column B, and put a face together. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely look at them from that perspective, and I'm also kind of gobsmacked that if you put what they did on the stage, nobody would believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's and it's funny that you said that about the makeup morgue, because just reading back and going through all of your career, that what really stands out to me is that you have such a recognizable face, but with the facial hair arrangement or a hat or the hair part, it's amazing how different you can look. It really just seeing it all in one place as I was going through the interwebs. I was just stunned at how chameleon you're in spite of the face that you have this such a recognizable face. It's unbelievable.
Well, thank you. That's really high praise, because growing up, I had this fantastic book. I was into horror movies when I was a kid. It was a fantastic book called Heroes of the Horrors. And it was sort of extended bios of Lon Chaney, Lon Chaney Jr., Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, Peter Lorre, all character actors who had careers in that genre. But my favorite was Lon Chaney Sr., because he was so transformative. I mean, some folks know this, but to play the Phantom of the Opera, he put fish hooks in his nose to make it turn up that way. When he was playing Quasimodo, he put the membrane of a boiled egg over his eyeball. It was before we had contact lenses or anything,
Yeah.
So, and now that you mention it, I often am cast to play multiple roles within one play. And so, there was a play called that I did on Hilton Head Island called Sherlock Holmes and the Final Adventure, in which I played 5 roles.
That's
so awesome. I was changing makeups. I was a Bobby, and I was a priest, and I was a safecracker, and it was great fun. Not great fun running up and down the stairs to that particular dressing room, but I was lighter then, and more.
And you did the 39 steps too. Have you done the 39 steps?
39 steps at Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival.
Yeah, that's all. That play is someday when I can go back to community theater when I'm done with my working life, that is a play that I definitely I long to do.
I saw that show on the Broadway when it had moved to a smaller theater, and I was in the 3rd or 4th row, and I rose to my feet and applauded that show, because it reminded me of my conservatory days and how we would make theater in the studio using 2 chairs, a ladder, and a trunk.
Yeah.
I just love that way of crafting theater. The serious example of that is Our Town. I just love that the audience's imagination, fills in the blanks. which also I think features character people.
No, I love that too. I love brass tacks, simplicity, the Fantastics kind of look. Just
I love that show.
That's my kind of theater as well. So I think again, that's why whenever I would see you in TV or film, that's it's almost like you can pick up on it when you see someone that you feel like likes those same kind of things because of how they carry themselves. It's really it's always been worth it to stop if I'm flipping and you're on a rerun of a show for sure. And this isn't even the end of the podcast yet, and I'm saying these things. But you wanted to do this since you were a kid, right?
Yeah, I when I was 10 years old and I got my first magic book and then studied the Mark Wilson course in magic. Sent away all the way to Hollywood for that because I was a big fan of The Magician television show with Bill Bixby. You kids are too young to remember that. But yeah, I wanted to be a magician in Las Vegas like Harry Blackstone or David Copperfield, and I wanted to be a member of the Magic Castle because all the cool cats in Hollywood at that time, like Jack Cassidy, they were all members of the castle. And so then, and I did magic shows well up into the time I went to conservatory, and traveled with doves in a crate that a girl could appear in, and all this stuff in my dad's Wagoneer, and I was like, man, this is a lot of stuff. And then when I was, I think 12 years old, I started going to children's theater. And I was completely hooked.
Yeah.
And by the time I was 13, I was playing Fagin in Oliver. And when it was over, I was sweeping the stage because it was, you do 3 months of creative dramatics and theater games and rehearsing a musical. And this was a big show. This show had 200 workhouse boys. Okay. And so, I was sweeping up the stage that Sunday after our second weekend closing, and I was like, am I just doing this to meet girls? I don't think so, because I'm really sad now that I'm going to have to wait 2 or 3 months before we can do it again and do more workshops and work to a musical. So sitting down at the dinner table, I announced that I knew what I wanted to do. And my mother said, oh, what is it? I said, well, no, I'm not going to tell you because I think you'll laugh at me. And she said, no, really. What is it? I said, well, I want to make people laugh and I want to be on stage 8 times a week. And I want to be an actor. And it was like, beep. Oh, well. But you still want to go to a 4-year school so that you'll have something to fall back on, won't you? And I said, I have no idea where this came from. Maybe it was the great beyond. I said, Mom, if I have something to fall back on, I will. And I think that was true.
Yeah.
And I think that I proved to them how committed I was because we flash forward to the end of my high school career. At that time, I was working 6 days a week with the Children's Theater as an associate director. They, kind of lofted me with a title. But I was doing creative dramatics and theater games with over 500 children every week in 3 different programs.
Wow.
In Vallejo, my hometown, Sacramento, and Napa. And I loved it so much, and I tried to get into PCPA's summer program a couple of times, and that didn't happen. But eventually, after 3 years of the Post Playhouse at Fort Robinson, Nebraska, which was my very first professional gig when I was 17. $60 a week and, a place to live. Communal living with a bunch of college students.
Of course.
Awesome. Yeah, great days, and doing silly melodramas, and some of them had an oleo, and so I would do my magic guy. Anywho, so then it was one of those summers. It was one of those summers I got a scholarship, a fine arts scholarship, to go to Chadron State College in Chadron, Nebraska. And the first semester I was there, I was initiated into Alpha Psi Omega on Thursday. And then asked to be the host of the annual banquet on Friday. And then on Saturday, I won 3 awards for Best Lead, Best Supporting, and Best Newcomer. Yeah. So I was like, as I was watching the snow pile up in January, I was like, maybe this isn't a fish bowl that I'm good to swim in.
Yeah.
So I got the wheels rolling to try to get into the Pacific Conservatory of the Performing Arts, which is a place that my mentor, Alex Urban, who is deceased now, he ran all of those children's theaters and one international one. He went to Russia, he went to New Zealand, etc. That's the conservatory that he raved about, because this was in the late 70s when that theater was doing 8 shows in rep in 2 theaters in the summertime. It was like amazing actors went through there, like Byron Jennings and Michael Winters, and the list goes on and on. And Robin Williams spent a summer there. So that's when I got the wheels rolling, and then I called them, and they're like, well, you can audition, but I said, but I'm working this summer. Is there any way I can, I'm going to miss your audition tour? And they said, just audition for us when you come out. We're not starting until October. Well, okay. So that's how I got into the conservatory, after spinning my wheels for a couple of years, going to junior college and hating French and and macroeconomics.
Right. Was your mom proud during that time, because you were going to school? So that's what.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. She basically said, you can go to school, or you can get a job, or you can move out. And it was tricky because I'm 17 years old. I had my first college girlfriend that summer, and then I had to come home and finish high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marty.
Did you mentioned the divine intervention, so to speak, on the fallback line, but even just kind of these early affirmations, do you attribute something in your upbringing to being able to like see what was happening and go, I know how to move forward from this point? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that, when it's like, no, this is comfortable, I want to stay here. But you were kind of like, no, I need a bigger fish tank.
Yeah. I don't know. I really wanted to do it for real.
Yeah.
Be serious and get real training. I mean, a big dream was just to appear on a sitcom, because I grew up loving them. Like all the Norman Lear shows that are having sort of a resurgence now. Yeah. Like, people don't even know how progressive All in the Family was. I mean, that people dropped their jaws with scenes with the Jeffersons. Sherman Hemsley, who I subsequently got to work with twice, and who sent me a Christmas card.
Nice.
I'm glad. All of them. Barney Miller, Welcome Back, Kotter. I used to do those impersonations. Happy Days. That's why I made that particular move. I didn't want to fart around with it. I didn't want to go to a 4-year school. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Many people have MFAs.
I have an MFA.
You know what you just did? Did he email you about this?
No,
he
I didn't
finds
email
a
you.
way to just wiggle this into every episode that he's got an MFA. It's so great. I have a BFA, so whatever. I mean, come on.
My MFA is in dramaturgy, to be fair. It's not.
That's not even a real thing. Whatever.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who call them MFAs. I saw a cartoon that was of a bunch of guys working in a diner, and there's a guy standing there, and he's like, "What are you looking at? We all have MFAs."
Thus ends the MFA references on Theme Park Thursday.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So I wanted to go right at it. And you know what? Something that led to that, there was two things actually. I saw the first national tour of A Chorus Line because we went as children's theater to see it. And the lady playing Cassie, she said, "Just do it." I knew I wanted to do this. I didn't need to go to a lot of school. This is what I needed to do. Now she's speaking from a dancer's point of view, and that career is much shorter. Right. You have to rely on your body, obviously. It's an athletic profession. Yeah. The other one was a wonderful actor named Edward Duke, who came to PCPA. He's very British, you know, champagne and rehearsals and all that. Well, he had a one-person show. He came in to do production of Private Lives. And I was an assistant stage manager on that because that was part of my conservatory training. And he had a one-person show called Jeeves Takes Charge, which is a P.G. Wodehouse, character. And he was brilliant at it, just brilliant. And he took me aside and he said, "You know, Wesley, when you get out of here, don't go to ACT, don't go to the Guthrie, and don't sit by the phone because it won't ring for you. You've got to go out and do it." Wonderful advice, for a 22-year-old conservatory student to hear. Here's this professional, He was tragically one of the guys that, passed away of AIDS when he was like 42 years old. But that was a little gold nugget.
It's kind of always been there, though. Everyone just going, no, just do it. Just keep going, keep going.
In my path, there have been angels who have said, "Don't give up."
Yeah.
Another one was a gentleman named Cliff Fannin Baker, who was the founder of Arkansas Rep. I did one show down there, and he directed the production of Christmas Carol that I did at Portland Center Stage a few years earlier. And I was traveling, through Arkansas on my way from Hilton Head Island back home, and he said, "Let's have dinner." And I was sad. I'm like, man, I'm not getting hired, and I don't know, and I'm thinking about giving it up. And he simply said, "Wes, don't give it up." Yeah. I mean, he saw something.
I feel like you had all the right people telling you all the right things in the right moments. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's, one of the great gifts of being involved in the theater is you have friends, mentors like that. And what's really important is to pass that stuff along, which is what I try to do with my mentees, students, etc. Yeah. And the first thing, you've heard this 100 times, if there's anything else you can do that'll make you happy, do it. Because it's not without its sacrifices.
When you decided, because obviously now that you've mentioned your love of sitcoms, you were inching towards doing film work over theater, even though you were thriving in these on stage.
Yeah. When I was at conservatory, it was my plan to move to New York City. But New York City scared the hell out of me. I thought it was expensive back in '87. Holy moly now. Yeah. Anyway, you guys are well acquainted. I mean, just the municipal taxes.
It's crazy.
But anyway, what happened was I was in a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream at PCPA, in which I played Puck. And we did 10 performances of it in Solvang under the stars, and it was sold out, and it was a design that was inspired by Dr. Seuss. So it was really fun, and it was wacky, and I got to do very silly gags with trapdoors and stuff. Well, it was so good that a couple of independent producers, one of whom was in the cast, brought it to the Westwood Playhouse, which is now the Geffen Playhouse. And we had an actual run, and a lot of us got our equity cards with that show. So the wind blew me to Los Angeles, and I had no idea how lucky I was, because like 3 or 4 agents wanted to meet me. And then a manager, wanted to meet me. And that's how I got my first agent. And then, I think we closed our show. It had a short 6-week run because, Shakespeare in Los Angeles. Not that kind of a theater town.
Yeah.
If you're at the Music Center at the Mark Taper, great, because we had stars in it, but we had no names. We had names in training. And anyway, and so like three months after that, when I was working with writers and artists as my representation, I went in and did a Minnesotan accent, and they loved it, and that was my first television gig.
And that's suddenly you're in a scene with Betty White.
Yeah, Betty White. There was another little-known actress.
I haven't really heard of her. What has she done? I don't know.
Surely a sitcom lover like yourself would have no idea about Betty White prior to. And Geraldine Fitzgerald. Dark Victory, man. Yeah.
I didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't really have an interaction, but we were in the same scene. I was just
it counts.
Mold. Yeah. So I'm in a scene with Betty White and Terry Hughes, the fantastic English director who eats nothing but a banana for lunch. We come in, we read on Monday, I guess it was, and he said, "Right, that'll be good, and you're broken for the day." We just did a read through the script. This was their 6th season, I believe. And they were all earning buku bucks, and they knew what they were doing. They're all veterans of television anyway. So Tuesday, we come in and we block and do that. I come back from lunch early, and I'm blanking on her name now, the one who played Grandma.
Estelle Getty.
Estelle Getty. Estelle Getty says, "So you're back early?" I said, "Yeah, I am. I like being early. I heard you met with my manager." I said, "Oh, yes. Yes, I did." "And you turned them down." I said, yeah. I've been told that you don't really need a manager until you have a career to manage, right?" And she said, "Yeah. And you didn't want to give away 15% of your livelihood. I get it." She was fantastic. I loved her. I loved her enough to not remember her name, but a long time ago when the world was young. And so then Wednesday, we do a run through for the producers, and my scene goes really well. My accent and my jokes are killing. And Betty White walks past me on the way out of the studio, and she says, "Well, too bad you didn't get any laughs." Wow, okay. Next day, nearly all my jokes were cut.
Oh no!
Really?
What?
Yeah, it was not because she was knocking me down. It's because in the formula of sitcoms, the regulars must be funnier than the guests.
Wow.
With a couple of exceptions.
Yeah.
It was not that way on Amen. Because the first episode, I played a tax guy, so I was the heavy. And I got a really big laugh on my exit line, like, "Sorry."
Yeah.
And then, and then slammed the door. And Sherman Hemsley got to do his thing afterward. So not only did I get a Christmas card from Sherman Hemsley, but they booked me on their final episode. I was the man who shut down the church. Came in a hard hat.
I forgot about it.
Yeah. So that was a place where they were like, "Yeah, let's have you back." So it's funny, but generally speaking, you know, especially with that, you know, quadrahedron of powerful women. There's not enough room really for the other folks to have the jokes, you know. Because
in a way, a very high compliment to you, because you got so many laughs that we had to cut it all out. So.
That was absolutely her intention by you know, giving me the needle a little bit, you know. So
Oh. But so many sitcoms, Night Court, Home Improvement. I mean, and just to speak to that sitcom lover in you again, did you continue while you were appearing on some to like really get into the sitcoms at the time? And like, how does, again, I guess the absorption of seeing what's funny for the times and what's not?
Yeah, I mean, Family Matters, and you know, someone posted a picture of me as Mr. Lawler from That's So Raven, who was the spitting principal. They posted it on Twitter with a caption that said, "This guy would spread COVID." Someone brought that to my attention this week. Like, look, I'm famous with the kids. Yeah, I don't watch sitcoms as much as I used to, but I have very fond memories of being in them. I mean, maybe I don't watch them because I'm jealous. You know, you mentioned Night Court. That was one of the most fun evenings of my life, followed by another one that I'll tell you about in a minute. Let's start with the audition. I would go in, and this is like, the fabulous April Webster was the casting director on this, and she had kept having me back for these different roles on Night Court because they had a lot of guests. Right? And I sat in just outside the casting office in a waiting room, and I saw a piece of paper on the table there, and it was a list of actors the producers like. Guess whose name was on it? So I went in, I auditioned for this slow motion guy who was Tortoise Nervoso, and I did my best Tim Conway impersonation. I learned so much about physical comedy from that clown. Oh God. I just idolized him. Anyway, so I did that, and they you know, they hired me, and then the bit that I did on the show was just killing, you know. Harry Anderson was a really nice guy. We were both magicians. That was really cool. Larroquette kind of kept to himself. And Richard Mall, I worked with subsequently a couple of times too. Really good bloke. And anyway, the bit was absolutely killing. And I really had to keep a straight face, and I did, and that was awesome, and I felt like I nailed it. And it was the 6th season wrap episode, and they had 20 some other guests. But what was awesome is one of the crew guys came over to me and he said, "You killed that. That's the only time I've seen John Larroquette sweat."
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. The other one that's in my memory now is because it's the last sitcom job I did before all of this happened. It was an episode of Two Broke Girls, and I was playing a snotty maitre d', you know, who was a gay Roomba champion, and so many characters. So we did my first scene. It went okay, and we moved on. And then we did the second scene that I had, and Michael Patrick King, who is the show creator, you know, Sex and the City. This guy's a king of television. He stops and he gathers all the writers around for about 20 minutes, and then he asks the cast to come here. And he says something like, "Wes, when she says this, I want you to say this. When she says that, I want you to say that. When she says this, I want you to do this. And when she says this, I want you to say that." I'm like, okay, I haven't seen these written down. I've heard them out of your mouth once, but I'm following you. Roll, speed, marker, action. First joke, kills. Second joke goes very well, doesn't kill as much because we're on a routine now. Third one does very well, and the fourth one does very well. It was the most exhilarating thing ever because it was like improvising around a situation that you know.
Right.
And it was yummy. and the audience loved it, and that was cool.
Yeah.
So after the curtain call, these shows have curtain calls, and they bring you out. Michael comes over and gives me a hug, and I said, "Man, that was awesome. You doubled my role." And he said, "No, and you should know this. You doubled your role." And I was like, still nice. Chills.
Yeah.
To feel like you're good enough, you're smart enough.
Yeah.
That you belong doing what you do.
Yeah.
See, that's another milepost in this, career that I've been lucky enough to have.
Yeah.
The validation,
And then throughout all the sitcoms, you're still weaving in theater, right? Along the way.
If you're going to do a camera medium, that's the one I like, because there's a live audience, and it's organic and in the moment, and I really love it. Don't get me wrong, I love being in movies, and I love what I really love is going to work in more than one day in a row.
Yeah.
Where the crew gets to know you. I've always liked the crew, and I have some friends who work on crews, because in the theater you have that sort of I call it a temporary surrogate family, where you're all trying to achieve a common goal, and you're teammates, and you care about what's going on in their lives, and you're really close friends. You're intimate friends for a short time. And once that's over, that group never comes together exactly that way again.
Yeah.
But you may get to work with people, more than once.
Right.
That was one of the gifts of working at the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival. It was a pretty core company there for about 10 years or so, that I was fortunate enough to be part of.
A good friend of mine who I've worked with in the past, she's now a teaching artist up at Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival, and she always used to go on about Malvolio and just the roles you played over time, of the roles you did there, and probably other Shakespeare roles you've done elsewhere. What's still on your Shakespeare to-do list?
Lear is fast approaching. Hence all this. John Falstaff was approaching during COVID-19. I'm trying to put John Falstaff away for a while. I mean, I played him in a playlit version when I was in conservatory, but I needed a big tummy of birdseed to do it. I'd prefer to do it that way. I mean, if Tom Hanks could do it that way, Kevin Kline could do it that way.
Right.
I'll do it that way too. And live to do it. But those are two. I always wanted to play Richard III, because every character comic man wants to play Richard III.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the few leads that a real character can play. And I am very history challenged, like I've never been in Henry, any of the Henry plays. I had a lofty goal to do all 29 plays in the canon, but I've only done 17 of them so far, with some repeats, like 3 Twelfth Nights and a couple of Midsummers, and a couple of versions of Romeo and Juliet, one of which I did this last year with some friends of mine in Las Vegas, performing arts high school that, because of COVID, had been shut down. So my friend Kelly said, we Zoom occasionally. I said, well, what's up? What are you doing? Because she's an arts educator. And she said, well, I'm going to do this production of Romeo and Juliet, and we're going to put it on Instagram. I said, do you need a friar? She said, oh my God, if I could get you, let me get back to you on that. So that's what we did. We experimented with Zoom and iPhones and all of that. So it was all produced on Instagram, and it was great having a chance to mentor high school students on Shakespeare text and all of that good stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I'd like to play the friar again. He's got a lot of great words and sentiments.
Twelfth Night. Is it possible that you have played Malvolio, Aguicheek, Toby Belch, and Festi? Because I could see you doing all 4 of those roles.
Only 2 out of the 4. So.
Oh, okay.
Festi at ACT in like 91, I think it was, and then Malvolio at Hudson Valley, but I did another production at A Noise Within down here, in which I played Valentine and Fabian, which is usually squashed up in Festi. So yeah, but in the course of casting that, at one point they were trying to figure out where to put me, and so initially I was the sea captain. This is Illyria lady at the top of the show, and then they had me reading for Antonio, which I was totally not right for. And then I came in to rehearse Antonio, and they were like, "Wait a minute, there's somebody in there." It was somebody reading for Antonio. So that's when they said, "How about Billy Valentine and Fabian?" Okay, I just wanted to be in a show. Yeah. That was in 2004.
It's nice to hear you tell this stories of being New York too, because I mean, granted, it's 2 hours north of this city, but since New York scared you a little bit, and because you were raised in California and you drifted back to LA and everything else, it's super fascinating to hear your time in Orlando now, doing Adventures in Wonderland, because here it's such West Coast, and East Coast, not New York, Orlando.
Orlando. Yes. Well, where do I begin?
where does it begin?
How do you even have time, by the way, for Orlando in the midst of all of this? I mean,
well, when you get that big Disney money, time for everything. We all were trying to figure out how to get our cars there, because Rick decided he was going to rent cars there, because it cost at that time I don't know, a couple grand to put your car on a truck and take it across the country. What happened was my friend Patrick had a little white Miata at that time, and it was the last one to load. And it takes over a week for the car to get there. Well, the driver broke down, and he drove Patrick's car to get help. I don't recommend. Eventually, we all arrived, and we all got situated in our apartments, and we had like a 25-minute drive to the MGM studios, which was there at that time. And
we still call it MGM, by the way, so feel free to just keep calling it that.
Just call it MGM?
Yeah, we call it.
We haven't changed the name in our heads, so it's fine.
It's nice to know some folks still remember the old days.
Yes.
So I thought Orlando would have winter, but it didn't. So I spent money on clothes that I couldn't wear. The thing about my particular character was that because of my makeup, and because it required 2 other puppeteers to be me, they tried to shoot me out in one day. So I went in for the readings on Monday. We read 2 scripts, because we did 2 episodes a week. And then I would go in maybe Thursday or Friday. And one of my days was voiceovering a clay animation cartoon, while the other folks were learning songs. So one of the things about it is that particular studio, those studios we were in, there were 2 of them, had a glass wall so that tourists could go by.
Right. That we were like, hey, look, hey.
So we were an attraction as well as a TV show. And, they couldn't hear us, which is probably a good thing, because invariably I would start going, saying, the cattle are here. And so don't do anything lewd. Because the temptation is so strong when you're doing children's television. Everything that you do has to pass standards and practices. So you cannot improvise. You can't go blue. You can't do anything like that, which is part of, I don't know, the world of acting when you're an adult. But acting when you're a caterpillar is different. So that was awesome. So I didn't work as many days as the other guys. The point I'm getting to is that I hung out in the makeup trailer. I hung out in the makeup room, and I learned how to ventilate hair pieces. By ventilating, I mean tying individual hairs onto netting and making eyebrows, sideburns, mustaches, etc.
All right.
Ron Wild was an amazing makeup artist and designed all the makeups on the show. And at that time, he was living in Las Vegas and designing makeups for Excalibur and a bunch of other places. But fantastic work with latex and Pax paint and all of that stuff back then.
Yeah.
It was just the best place to hang out. The makeup and hair people are some of the coolest people on a set, especially the makeup people, and well, I guess the hair people too, because they have to invade your personal space. Right. So you have to trust them, and they're great. I just love hanging with them because I love their craft too. Like for instance, ventilating. I had never seen one of these amazing magnifying glasses with a ring light around it. So you could look through it and not have to wear spectacles and tie hair, you know. It's just like doing a latch hook.
Right.
By the way, in case you want to take it up.
Yeah, I mean, I could, but I mean, maybe do some research. It's almost been 10 years. So
so that's how I would feel some of my time. The rest of my time, I would feel going out the back door of the studio, right onto the lot, to the theme park.
On stage.
And I would see, you know, if it was in the afternoon, I saw a lot of pasty, sunburned, overweight parents just slogging along because they got to get it all done in one day. And the kids are crying and they're hungry. And I've never seen so many strollers lined up outside the studio, just like a platoon. And so where I would go more often than not would be the Muppets 3D movie, because it was a great attraction. It really was. And I didn't have to get on a roller coaster or anything. Like so
it's air conditioned Muppets, can't go wrong.
Exactly. Not so humid. Awesome. I also, you know, took up photography at that time. I bought my Canon Rebel. It was a single reflex camera. Nobody knows what that is anymore.
How long total to get you in the makeup?
The first time before he had all of his colors mixed, it was about 3 hours. And all of the pieces made. And then the thing was, it took about an hour and a half to get out of it too. Because this was this was a surgical adhesive that he used to put these pieces on. So that's an adhesive that they use to close up scars. So it has to have a solvent to dissolve it, which is called detachol, which had kind of an acetone smell. Right. So you really had to be good about moisturizing your skin. So apply the detachol, wait for it to react, and then start rolling it off your face in little tiny balls, like latex. Subsequently, my skin started to break out down there, really bad sort of cysts. And I went to the locals and they said, "Oh, you're probably drinking our orange juice, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, man, I can't get enough of it. I was like, it's like a quart a day." It's like, yeah, stop that. Because, you know, it's highly acidic. And later I found out that, I have an O blood type. God, I'm telling too much on this.
No, we love it.
I have an O blood type, which, you know, citrus is not good for you because you already have a really acidic system designed to digest meat, which I enjoy. So
I don't think I ever knew this. I think
that's my skin story. Yeah.
Interesting.
And there was two other guys. It was two other people. Is there one in the middle arms and then one at the bottom?
That's correct. Well, yeah, and the first set of legs.
Right.
Yeah. So there was one that was sitting like this with the arms out, and then there was one above that sat on a little stool, and he had this, and then I was leaning over a piece of PVC pipe so that I could have my arms be the same length as theirs.
Okay.
And I was, you know, when they figured out how hot it would be, then they gave me a cool suit, which I don't know, maybe your listeners are interested in that. It's basically a vest that has aquarium tubing going up and down through the whole thing, and it has 2 hoses, one for in, one for out, and that's attached to basically a box with ice.
Like a cooler?
Like a cooler, right?
Coolers.
Yeah.
Why is it the really important words don't come out? Yeah. A cooler. Yes. Yeah. And so that's really good to bring your core temperature down. And Patrick really needed that as we continued to shoot, because he was really active on the rollerblades.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's interesting. I feel like friends of the characters in the theme parks seems like something they could use.
Yeah, that's where it came from, actually, because, on their breaks, they hook up. The coolers.
To the coolers. Was this something brought to you that, hey, there's going to be this show in Orlando? How did it come about?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I get this audition to audition for the Mad Hatter for this series for Disney. So I went in and I said, no room. And they loved it so much that they wanted me to come in for the Caterpillar. So subsequently I came in and I did my Caterpillar, and they liked it. Yeah. And then I think I went in a 3rd time to read with one of the Alices. And then they did a screen test, which was really a makeup test of just the head. Because that head is a piece that ends right about here, all made of foam latex. And then Ron did a full makeup, and it felt like it was getting really close. And then none of us heard anything for like 3 months. And then they're like, okay, we'll put you on retainer for another 3 months. So it was like 6 months between the time we auditioned to the time it was time to shoot the pilot. And so that's how it happened. It never happens like, oh, we're doing this show, you want to be in it?
Right.
Not for me.
Right.
Yeah. So,
was this the same time that Mickey Mouse Club was there? Did you guys overlap in those studios, or?
I don't believe we did.
No.
I don't think
I wasn't sure if there was a year or so.
I don't remember any other shows being shot down there at that time. I may be mistaken on that, though. Okay.
And I know the exterior, the house was on the back lot, right? Outside of Alice's house, I think in the beginning credits.
Yeah, it was. That's an exterior.
Yeah.
But the bedroom was on our set.
Right. Yeah.
Because that was
Adventures in Wonderland was Jen's morning cereal before school.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love it.
Some Fruit Loops and some Adventures in Wonderland before school, living life. Yeah.
Were you able to, if something came up, audition, like a role came up for you to audition for that was in California, were you allowed to do that during that time? Did you have to send tape? Because it was a different time.
It wasn't really feasible for me at that time. So I think I probably told my agent that I'm booking out to do this gig. And it's conceivable that it could have been done, but people would have had to do a lot of shuffling for it to happen. Right. And you don't want to get people angry at you for, schedules colliding.
Right.
And making producers compete with each other.
And you did 2 a week. Was it split over the couple of years, or would you do like 10 episodes and then I don't like how many episodes in a period of time would you shoot?
I think our schedule, if I'm remembering correctly, was 3 weeks on, 1 week hiatus, and each week had 2 episodes in it. So it was 6 shows, then a week off, 6 shows, a week off. Yeah. A week off in Orlando.
Back then, no.
I went to the Strawberry Festival. I went to one Texas Rangers spring training game.
There you go.
What else did I do? Oh, one time we went down to St. Augustine. We took a road trip down there, saw Daytona Beach and St. Augustine. and I ate some barbecue.
Oh yeah.
When you were out walking around the parks during your breaks, did anyone ever recognize you once the show was on the air and got a little more popular, or never?
Not one.
Never.
although some people about your age, after the show had done airing and everything, have looked at me and said, and then all I have to say is hello. That reminds me of a story.
That's really funny.
No, and there was even I think our friend Tammy Tucky had footage of this. It was they did a stand-up of us, on cardboard, and me going as I am in all of the print for this. Slightly bemused and surprised.
Yeah.
No, I mean, and I know Jen, when I told Jen last week that it was coming to Disney Plus, she was like, oh my gosh. So we'll be all about it.
And of course the cast, we're all on Facebook messaging each other going, did you hear? Oh my God, what does that mean for us? Are we going to, is it a new deal? Is it an old deal? What? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And, and the main thing, and I called the union and I found out about it and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the big thing that I'm getting to is that when you're in this career, you get paid in a lot of different ways. Mm-hmm. You get paid with great friends, great parts, great experiences, great audiences. And in this case, you get paid in the fact that a whole nother generation is going to see your work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And maybe be their Captain Kangaroo, their, Miss Mary on Romper Room. They're right. like it was for you, the start of your day. And that's really touching.
Yeah.
Well, before we go, we want to touch on Back to the Future 2 just for a second, because we must.
Right?
We have to. The way I look at it, the original Back to the Future, it's not necessarily my favorite movie, but I see it as like a perfect movie. There's just so much about it that's perfect in my eyes. But what I love about Back to the Future 2 is how it repeats itself. And I am curious for you to be kind of dropped into the middle of an iconic scene, which is after George has knocked out Biff, and then you kind of get to see what happens after. I just think that's the coolest thing in the world, that 4 years later you're in an iconic scene of a classic movie. It was already classic by then.
Yeah, I know. I remember coming to Los Angeles in '87 and seeing the Michael J. Fox billboard on Sunset Boulevard of him looking at his watch, and it was a countdown to the opening of the movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And I had a lunch with Joan Scott, who was the owner of Writers and Artists at that time. Mm-hmm. And after she said, they can do wonderful things with teeth now. After she said that to me, she was like, well, how are you going to live here? I said, well, my parents are helping me. They've always supported me through my conservatory years, etc. And why are you here? I said, well, I want to do television. I want to be on billboards like that. Mm-hmm. That was music to her ears. Subsequently, I got my teeth fixed. But what it was like, the actual day of shooting, night of shooting, was being called, let me back up. The audition was at Imagine Entertainment on the Universal lot. And so what was Imagine Entertainment? At that time, it was a real live log cabin set back in a grove of palm trees. And the guard told me where to go. And as I approached the building, someone walked up to me and said, excuse me, may I help you? I'm like, yeah, I'm here for casting. Oh, yes, right this way. So I'm in a conference room that is as big as a barn and log cabin everywhere, dark wood. The conference room is, an enormous tree that's been cut in half. It's one of those. And the furniture is all this big rough-hewn stuff made out of limbs that big, all polished and varnished and weird. And there's a video camera, and the casting director comes in. And I read copy that I didn't even know and eventually copy that was not in the motion picture. Even then they were worried about leaks. So yeah, and then I get the call that I'm, you should be at Whittier High School at 4:00 in the afternoon. Drive out there, sit in the chair, go through the works. The guy cutting hair says, "Man, you've got a great head of hair for this period." I'm like, just go over there and pick a suit. It's kind of like that movie, The Sting, when they're
right.
Go pick a suit. I found this lovely sort of striped orange number and a tie and some two-tone shoes. And I was like, I like it. And then I went to my trailer, and then it was midnight, and it was time for lunch.
Obviously.
So I got my lunch, and I sat down at a table across from Leah, and who was the nicest person ever. She sat with the extras and answered all their questions.
That's awesome.
Fantastic lady. And
it's basically my 1987 dream right there. To sit at the table with Leah Thompson and have her answer all my questions.
Yeah. Do you love me? Will you marry me? You look like this forever. And so then after lunch was over, I went back to the trailer. And then it was 4:30 in the morning, and the sun was coming up. And it's like, boom, 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 boom. We're ready for you. See, at that time in my career, I didn't know that you could nap on the set. I was all amped up to get in front of the camera and meet Robert Zemeckis and do this thing. And so I was like this. I was wired and drinking Diet Cokes and So, okay. So we do the first scene, which is, pushing in on Michael, and it's okay, I know CPR. What's CPR? I did that whole thing. And then, him running away, and I think he took his wallet stuff. And then we did, I think he took his wallet as its own thing. And Robert just ran the camera. He was going to do 11 minutes without stopping. And, it was, 6 or 7 minutes of him saying, okay, now look away. Now look back at me. Now say it. Okay, now look away. Look back at me. Now look away. Now look back at me. And say it. So he had like a number of different choices to do. Obviously, he chose the best one. And so that was like, and cut and moving on. And that's a wrap on Wesley. And I was kind of like, yeah, but it's like Burt Lancaster in Field of Dreams. He says, it's like being this close to your dream. That's right. But it is a dream because the magic of film is that a year and a half later people are like, oh my God, I stood up in the movie theater, that's you. All over the country. It was great. All my theater friends were like, ooh, wow, yeah. It was 20 minutes with Zemeckis. So but
I just watched it again. We were emailing back and forth, and it was on that night on AMC. I was like, what's happening?
Wow, I guess we're at classic. Yeah, it's iconic, and it's kind of amazing that I play golf, and guys say, well, what do you do? I'm an actor. I'm like, oh yeah, have I seen you in anything? That's what they always say. Yeah. But I'd love to rattle off 30 years of television credits for you, but let me just start with this one. Oh my God, you're that guy? I said, yeah, I think you stole his wallet guy. And then, I don't know if you've searched YouTube, but there's a guy out there or a girl out there who has sampled it and put a backbeat to it.
No.
Yeah.
That now I have to. Now that's exactly what's happening when this is over.
Yeah, there's another guy in the UK who calls me the boss-eyed guy, because that's what cross-eyed is over there. It's the boss-eyed guy, and he's got a wallet, and he goes on and on. It's very funny. So yeah, I have my little niche in the cultural literacy now, thanks to Robert Zemeckis and all the kids. Back to the Future.
Well, and I feel like there's so many movies that are considered like cult classics. I don't know that I put Back to the Future in that category. I feel like it's just a classic. But then I feel like Your Line is its own like cult classic because just everyone knows that line. Everyone knows your face. Yeah. So it's like its own little thing.
It seems to be, you know, I had a friend who used to live here in Los Angeles, and she brought her boyfriend to a local restaurant to meet me. And he said, "Would you sign my wallet?"
Yes.
I said, "Yes, of course."
I love it.
Yeah.
Of course I will. You shady person, don't sell it on me. I trust it.
That's awesome.
People are generally good.
Yes.
Well, once this pandemic is over, what are your plans? What do you plan to do first? What are you looking forward to doing? What do you have in mind? Tell us everything.
I have some great friends who are industry folk, like a set decorator and his girlfriend who works in a props shop, a film producer. At that time, there was an editor here, and we would just hang out at our local bar in Burbank and just, you know, talk about the industry and talk about what we're doing and just shoot some pool. They had great fried chicken at that bar, and you know, it was really great for me because that's how I socialize, because I'm living alone now, and for a while. So I'd love to do that. I'd love to go have a drink at a bar, have a happy hour, and have a happy hour.
Yeah.
And you know, do that. I'm looking forward to eating indoors in restaurants again. I still don't think we're ready. We're in a race against the variants. But yeah, and of course, getting back on stage.
Yeah.
On stage, not wearing masks, but possibly seeing an audience filled with masks.
Yeah.
Which brings a new light to the classic joke. What is this, an audience or an oil painting? Because you may hear, laughter behind a mask. What you're going to hear is
I haven't even thought about that. Sure.
Yeah, can you imagine staring out into a sea of different colored masks and a lot of silver hair as usual?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to getting back on a set. You know.
Yeah.
So, you know, auditioning from home is very convenient.
Yeah.
You know, the setup I have.
Yeah.
And you know, I would like to not be dependent on you know, doing books for Audible, and you know, I'm also dubbing some movies for Netflix into English.
Oh, okay.
I have one of those to do on Friday. So it's all very convenient, but it's without any human contact. You know what I'm really looking forward to? Seeing people smile, because we all look kind of menacing in these masks.
Yeah.
When I'm out for my walks now during the day, I have my Ray-Bans and my black mask and my cap. And so I make sure that I go, yeah, I can't even see my eyebrows. Okay. Like, are you the Unabomber? So yeah, looking forward to all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing with the career you've had and the people you've worked with and the different roles that you've had, that just talking to you for this last hour plus, you're so completely humble. Like I'm not sure if that's part of your upbringing too. I mean, you've known what you've wanted to do since you were a kid. You had so much support along the way, but to me, I mean, having the career you've had, I don't think you should be this humble. I don't know.
well, thank you. The people that I have known, who I have loved, have that particular trait. Henry Winkler is one. I was almost in one of his movies. John Candy was another one. He always hung out on the set and riffed with the cast. Yeah. He liked my Lou Costello impersonation. Sorry. That's one medal of honor I have.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a craft like anything else. And no matter who you are, years after you look at your own work, you're going to say, I could have done something different or something better. So it's good to keep it all in perspective. I mean, it's also good to be kind. you know, when people get all starstruck, talking to me, the first thing I do is ask them their name and what they do.
Yeah.
Because, you know, first of all, I don't want them to implode. And I just want to have a conversation. I am honored that you think that much of me. And anybody who, you know, tries to whisk that away, I'm sure it can get overwhelming at a different level. But at my level, it's like a great sort of modicum of fame.
Yeah.
You know?
No, you know, just how we've interacted in email, and when you first came on the call, and just as if as if all three of us have spoken together before, or been out before, or had a happy hour before, and for it to seem like, all right, we're just hanging out again. Yeah. I mean, that really speaks to your character here and the characters you've played, because we, as an audience, we're always drawn to your characters in the sitcoms and movies over the years. And so to see that translate here is, you know, is tremendous. It's tremendous for me to see. And again, I can't thank you enough for spending the time to talk to us.
Oh, I'm glad to do it. I'm very excited about the streaming, you know, and that it's actually going to happen. I hope that there's good response to it, as good as when it premiered. Did you know that yesterday, or was it yesterday, the day before, was the 29th anniversary of the day we premiered?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So next year at this time will be 30-year reunion. We'll all be in wheelchairs.
You know, we make a joke here when we talk about the theme parks and everything else, that 1992, because that's the year I graduated high school. That's like the barometer for us. Like, we only like things before 1992 and before, we're like all in on. And then anything that might have come after, we have to really suss out. 1992 is that benchmark.
Yeah. I'm one of those guys that thinks the 90s was 10 years ago.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
I don't like doing the math right now.
No, agreed.
Your kids graduated college. I remember when they were born.
Yeah.
So. Here we are. Adventures in Wonderland, April 30th, Disney Plus, Wesley Mann as the caterpillar. Everyone needs to stream it, do the thing, and relive the glory of Adventures in Wonderland. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.